Man, the first 4 fights on the card were insane. I wasn't sure if I was watching UFC Vegas 8 or Chael Sonnen Submission Underground. What up, Fightful fam? Shaquille Majuri here with your Fightful Fix UFC Vegas 8 edition. We're going to take a look at Anthony Smith versus Aleksandar Rakic, plus Ricardo Lamas' potential retirement and all the highlights from the UFC Vegas 8 main card. Now, before we get started, if you could please go ahead and hit like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell. That goes such a long way to helping our channel grow. I thank you very much. Okay, first up, the UFC Vegas 8 main event. Aleksandar Rakic wins a one-sided, dominant, and quite frankly boring unanimous decision over 5th-ranked Anthony Lionheart Smith. Really, the most exciting part of this fight was probably in the first minute when Rakic hit some thumping, bludgeoning leg kicks that actually dropped Smith. From there, he followed Smith to the ground and rode out top position from the guard for the remainder of the round. You had a lot of people, including a bunch of UFC fighters online, being like, "Yo, Rakic, you know his leg is compromised, right? Why don't you get up and beat the crap out of him?" Rakic did address this in the post-fight interview. He said, "You know what? I'm not going to chase a finish. If it comes, it comes. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I knew we were going to stand up again in round 2. I thought might as well secure the position and guarantee myself the round." Not very exciting, but fair enough. Round 2 and 3 was more of the same. Basically, Anthony Smith would engage in grappling opportunities. He would try and clinch up. He would try and grab Rakic and take him down, only to end up on bottom, where he showed absolutely no way of getting up. Quite honestly, he didn't show a whole lot of urgency, but as commentator Paul Felder pointed out, it's possible that his leg was more compromised than we know, and that he was having trouble effectively getting up from it. Rakic came home with 2 30-27 decisions and 1 30-26, and he called out the winner of Dominic Reyes versus Jan Blachowicz. Now, I think that's too soon. He did say he was open to taking a 5-round fight against someone else. And that's just to say that he is technically coming off of the Oezdemir loss. Now, a lot of people did score that fight from him, but, we can't complain about Jose Aldo getting a title shot off a loss, and then kind of be cool with Rakic leapfrogging some other viable contenders, namely the winner of Thiago Santos versus Glover Teixeira should absolutely be the number 1 contender. And on that note, I think that Rakic, who should rank number 5 in the next update, should fight the loser of Santos versus Teixeira. If he wins that, without a doubt, he should fight the winner of Dominic Reyes, Jan Blachowicz versus the winner of Santos versus Teixeira. And where does that leave Anthony Smith? He's now lost one brutal fight to Glover Teixeira, which you'd have to think took some time off of his career, and now he lost a clear and unspirited decision to Aleksandar Rakic. For me, if you look at the top 15, there's a bunch of people I don't want him to fight. I don't want him to fight the winner of Hua versus Paul Craig, unless it's Paul Craig. I just don't really want to see a Smith versus Hua rematch. I don't want to see him fight the winner of Johnny Walker versus Ryan Spann. What I really think would be good for him right now is number 10 ranked Misha Cirkunov. Misha's a very strong, talented grappler, great submissions, not as big of a danger on the feet, and I'd like to give Anthony Smith a little time to recuperate after 2 really tough fights. And let's move on to the co-main event. Neil Magny, again, one-sided decision over former welterweight champion Robbie Lawler. Magny controlled things at distance. He controlled things in the clinch. He for sure controlled things on the ground, taking Lawler's back numerous times and hunting for a rear naked choke. Lawler notoriously difficult to submit, and he managed to hold on. Now, just to express how one-sided this fight was, Neil Magny outstruck Robbie Lawler 116-41 in total strikes. Math ain't my strong suit, but I think that's more than 70, maybe 75 strikes in the favor of Magny. It's also worth noting that with that win, Neil Magny has now won 17 fights in the welterweight division and is 2 wins away from tying George St. Pierre's all-time record. Neil Magny did express in the post-fight interview that at this stage he wants a top 10 guy. That is what he deserves, and it's hard to argue with him. He did, however, say he was willing to fight 11-ranked Jeff Neal. The two were scheduled to fight prior to Neal pulling out, and Neal called him out on Twitter. I'm totally down with that fight. I think we need to see what sort of grappling defense Jeff Neal has before we can truly usher him in as a potential title threat. And for Magny, this will be, I think, the most dangerous striker he's fought in quite a while. But let's say the UFC wants to grant Neil Magny his wish and give him a top 10 guy. There's two people that stand out. Neil is at 14, I think, and he beat 13th ranked Robbie Lawler. So I say if you want to be generous, you can give him 8th ranked Michael Chiesa. Michael Chiesa has looked great at welterweight, and he's a phenomenal grappler. So I would really like to see what Neil Magny can do against him. For me and my super rudimentary fight breakdown analysis, Neil has an incredible variety of tools, but I find he often uses his inside work, his clinch work, and his grappling to dictate the pace. That allows him to open up with a very diverse set of strikes without having to worry too much, because he has his opponents trepidatious about the grappling exchanges. And he's also so lengthy that he's just hard to reach. I don't know if Neil Magny has the grappling acumen to hold Chiesa down, to hold Chiesa against the wall, and so Neil's going to have to rely a lot more on his range in that fight. I'd love to see if Michael Chiesa is able to close the distance, and I'd really love to see how the Neil Magny that fought Robbie Lawler would adjust his game plan for a strong grappler like Michael Chiesa. I also think number 10 ranked Vicente Luque would be great. Vicente is a very well-rounded guy, a finishing machine. He does it on the feet, he does it on the ground, knockout, submission, whatever. He's super well-rounded in a different way than Neil Magny, and I'd love to see how that fight would play out. As for Lawler, man, I think the days of him being a title challenger are probably over, and that is no shame, man. Robbie Lawler's welterweight championship run was probably the most exciting string of title fights that I have ever seen. Just the Rory McDonald and Carlos Condit fights alone stand out as some of the greatest fights in UFC history, and we're not even touching on his Johnny Hendricks fights. I think a really fun fight at this stage for Robbie Lawler would be against number 15 ranked welterweight Anthony Pettis. Both guys are in a stage in their career where they're looking to have fun fights, and that would be a super big marquee fight night headliner or a pay-per-view co-main event or main card fight. If you're looking outside of the top 15, I know Mike Perry is currently dealing with some personal issues. I hope that he pulls through with those. But Robbie Lawler versus Mike Perry would be tantalizing. Another fight that I think could be really fun, although I might be jumping the gun a little bit, is Robbie Lawler versus Daniel Rodriguez. Daniel Rodriguez has looked insane through 2020. He's coming off that big come-from-behind victory over Dwight Grant. It's probably one fight too soon to put Daniel Rodriguez in there with Robbie Lawler, but it's something I would love to see eventually. Now moving on to the main card opener, veteran Ricardo Lamas beat a very game UFC debutant in Bill Algeo. It was super competitive. I think Bill won the first 2 rounds. He definitely won the second. Man, Bill threw the sneaky knee that had Ricardo doing a 360 spin. He was so dazed by it. So I had it 2018 for Bill going into round 3, although a lot of people had it 1919. And then Lamas, the savvy veteran, came to life. He roared back into the fight. He got the takedown and used some really smart, some really impressive and patient grappling positions to hold Bill down, not let him get up, and struck his way to a 10-8 round. That was enough to earn him a unanimous decision on the judges' scorecards. That fight was announced as the fight of the night, deservingly so, and afterwards, Ricardo Lamas didn't put anything in stone, but he did say that he was chewing on the idea of this being his retirement fight. It's not a decision he wanted to make in the moment. It's something he wanted to go home and discuss with his family first. If it truly is Ricardo's last fight, man, what a stellar career, a true legend, and best to Ricardo in all of his future endeavors. If it's not his last fight, I think the only match to make is the rematch with Ryan Hall. I will say I favor Ryan Hall in that matchup. The two were supposed to meet on Saturday. Ryan Hall had to pull out with an injury. Unfortunate for any grappling nut, because Ryan Hall is so interesting. He's so dynamic. He's got these crazy spinning kicks now to add to his diverse arsenal of submissions, and no one wants to fight him. And so Lamas was game. We were going to see it happen, and now he didn't. I would personally rather Lamas retire than fight Ryan Hall. I think it's a tough matchup for Ricardo. His striking defense doesn't seem to be what it once was, nor does his chin. Ryan Hall showed a lot of power in those spinning kicks, rocking and dropping Darren Elkins in their fight. And in this fight, Ricardo got caught several times by Bill Algeo, and he had to rely on his grappling. He had to rely on his takedowns and his top control. And I don't think you want to mess with Ryan Hall on the ground. I'm not quite sure what Ricardo's route to victory would be in that fight. Now let's run down the preliminary card for the night. Wow, man. Impa Kasanage, coming off of the Contender Series, beat Maki Pitolo 30-27. Powerful strikes, constant pressure. That guy looks dangerous, and you should definitely keep an eye on him. Second to the last prelim fight, really weird one. Zach Cummings versus Alessio Di Chirico. Was not very exciting across the first 2 rounds. It was 19-19 coming into the third. They were splitting hairs, and then at 4:59 of round 3, Zach Cummings nails a head kick that drops Alessio, and it dropped him bad. He held his hands up in victory. The referee did not wave the fight off, but I mean, the bell had rung. The round was over. The fight was over. Alessio gets up to his feet immediately, but then begins stumbling headfirst into the cage. So his feet were definitely not underneath him. Some people online were saying that it should have been ruled a knockout. I'm not quite sure I'm there. I think if Alessio was unconscious, out cold, you would have had to call that a knockout. I think you have to give him the chance to recover. I know he was stumbling in that moment, but chances are if Zach Cummings had swarmed him, Alessio would be covering up, he would be scrambling, he would be trying to grab on and pull him into guard. And so that process would have likely taken 5 to 10 seconds before Cummings could truly earn himself a KO or a TKO. So I guess the question you have to ask yourself is, what would have happened had the fight gone on another 5 or 10 seconds? In my mind, Alessio would have been able to hold on for at least a few. I think it should have gone to the judges' scorecards. I also think that Zach should have been awarded a 10-8, considering how close he was to getting that finish and how badly rocked Alessio was. All's well that ends well. Zach Cummings comes away with the unanimous decision. Man, the first 4 fights on the card were insane. I wasn't sure if I was watching UFC Vegas 8 or Chael Sonnen Submission Underground, because all 4 fights ended via submission. Mallory Martin, Polyana Viana, Sean Brady, and Alex Caceres all tapped out or choked out their opponents within 2 rounds. The Performance of the Night awards went to Mallory Martin, who snagged a sub-2-minute armbar of Emily Spitfire Whitmire, and Sean Brady, who choked out Christian Aguilera with a guillotine choke in round 2. For me, what actually stood out the most was Alex Caceres, Bruce Leroy. This guy has been with the UFC since I think 2011 when he appeared on The Ultimate Fighter, and he now has a 3-fight win streak, the best he's had since January of 2014. He seems to really be putting a lot of his game together. I think something that's really helped him a lot in the striking. He does a really good job now of keeping his lead foot outside of his opponent's lead foot, and it always gives him the advantage in terms of moving side to side. And that's really, really, really helping him put together his counter-striking. When your striking opens up, when your striking is successful, your grappling opens up. He got a great submission win. And that is all for today's Fightful Fix. Let us know in the comments section, where do you think Aleksandar Rakic and Anthony Smith go from here? Plus, who most surprised you at UFC Vegas 8? If you enjoyed this video, the best way you can help us out here at Fightful MMA is by tapping subscribe and hitting the notification bell. A like on this video never hurts either. For Fightful, I'm Shaquille Majuri. Stay safe, and we'll see you soon.